A predator has lost its position. Here's your look at the Hiya Toys as the Predator 2 Exquisite Mini of the Lost Predator. Exquisite Mini is a new standard setting series for 1/18th scale, featuring super articulation action figures under Hiya Toys. Going to be looking at another Predator figure from the folks over at Hiya Toys. This one happens to be Lost Predator, and like all the other cases, I'd like to send a big thank you to the folks over at Hiya Toys who were nice enough to send the samples that we're having a look at in these several reviews. Like with the other Predators, the Lost Predator seems no different. He stands 4.4 inches in height, and that in centimeters works out to be 11.4, almost 11.5, almost, not quite there, but almost 11.5 centimeters tall. The Lost Predator does come with many of the same similar things we've seen with other of the Predator figures, but then he also has a few surprises up his sleeve as well. This is not so much one of those surprises, as we certainly have seen these stands be provided with all the other Hiya Toy Predator figures. It's, again, like a muddy terrain. And just again, to put it next to one of the other Predator figures that we had a look at, nothing different really, other than, again, you know, maybe that little bit of dark brown isn't quite the same on this side. But the sculpting certainly is identical to one another. I guess we'll turn it around so you guys can see. There we go. Yeah, see, like this little texturing here matches there, kind of looks like a footprint. Same identical pieces. And like with the other ones that we had to look at before, you do have the little eye brackets. I know I probably sound like a broken record showing you guys these every single time, but it's simply also just for, if say somebody has only seen this review of him, I'd like to provide as much 411 as I possibly can in this review. And we'll just put, like I said, we'll put the eye brackets on both sides. What I was getting at, though, is that Hiya also includes these little eye brackets. That if you line the bases up, you fit the brackets in between, just like that. You can actually connect multiple bases together to get you a much larger diorama scene. Again, I really like the way that they've done this, and I do make use of these actually when it comes to my own displays. I do use the eye brackets. I combine multiples together. I've done that with actually a lot of my alien figures as well. So you do get that. We'll put that to the side. Some of the other things that have made reappearances are, I'm convinced, the exact same hands. One a fanned out version of the hand, as you can see right there, and one more a relaxed hand. One thing that is different, though, about these hands versus the ones that we looked at before, these ones are definitely a little bit more mossier green, the color of algae. They're really nice contrast because on the inside you've got the brown coloring there. And then with the fingers, if you can see it or not, it actually looks like he's got a palmed glove where the rings of the fingers actually wrap around only the bottom sections of his fingers. It's really clever the way that they've done that. Other things that come reappearances, at least, are the spear. Now this one happens to have two versions of the spear, one retracted, one extended, as you can see right there. They're both painted in silver with what looks also like probably what the case has been. They probably have used a dark plastic and they simply just brushed over top of it, just touching only the edges in the metallic silver. So it's a really nice way, and a very easy way when you really think about it, to produce a two-tone effect when it comes to accessories or really display bases. A lot of companies just do that. Like I said, just brush the edge surface. So like the recessed areas still stay relatively dark. And like I said, it's really only the edges themselves that get touched by the silver. Touched by the silver. The other thing he comes included with, now this is rather interesting, he gets a skull. And if you've been following these, thank you for that, by the way, each one of the Predators have gotten his own fair skull, his share of skulls. And this one actually comes with a little bit of a smaller skull. Again, what species this is, I don't know, I have no idea. No idea whatsoever. And this one definitely is a more darker color. Kind of reminds me of a peanut, the coloring of a peanut. I certainly would not be eating a peanut if it looked like this, like a demon-horned creature. But it's a really interesting looking skull nonetheless. And last but certainly not least, the one thing that was interesting about this particular Predator, Lost gets himself a blade, a smaller bladed sword. I don't know if you would consider this a sword, but he does come with a smaller bladed weapon. This is not something that's been shared with many of the other Predators, so it's sort of unique to him. I like the way that that's been done. It's been given silver, but then at the bottom it's more of a frosted white. Very, very cool the way they've done that. So when it comes to displaying the pieces for myself at least, I like to make each of the predators as unique as I possibly can. So if one predator on display has, for example, the spear, didn't mean to startle you there, the other predator and the lost predator, for example, I'm going to display with this. So again, they look different from one another. Now let's have a look at the figure itself. I really like the look of this one, and I didn't feel like I would. The packaging definitely gives him the more look. Well, you're really only seeing when you see him in packaging, because most of it's going to be a reflective surface, is the green coloring on his face, the body, his hands, of course his legs. It's a very, very stark green. And in addition to that, not only do you have the green, but you also have all this red that looks like, it kind of looks like a Christmas or an Easter egg, the way that they, I mean, believe you me, you wouldn't want to get an Easter egg that looked like the predator. Okay, maybe I would. But it has a real neat pattern work to it. It kind of looks like a tortoise shell. But I didn't think I honestly would have liked this one when I saw it immediately in the packaging. It wasn't until I actually took it out, had a chance to really be able to sit and look and appreciate all the details and sculpt that Hiya put into this piece, that he might actually be one of the standout winners of the sets of figures that I have released at least recently of the Predator figures. What I like about this one, and you know what, we'll bring in one of the other Predator figures that we just recently had a look at. Each one of them is like a deadly snowflake, different from the last. And while this one here, the Scout Predator, looks a little bit more closer to a conventional Predator, at least with its armor, Lost Predator goes very different, at least in a very different direction when it comes to his armor. His armor looks a little bit more advanced. Like it looks like it has, like, I don't know, it's a little bit certainly more of a futuristic armor. Something that at least serves a practical purpose, where I feel like when it comes to the armors of the Predator, they're kind of wearing them more like warrior armor. Predator, I feel, doesn't fall into that category. The things like his gauntlets, for example, a little bit more streamlined. He definitely has, like I said, a little bit more of a techno-organic sort of blending between obviously the flesh, the body of the Predator, and the more advanced looking suit that he has in his torso, for example. It's jet black. Very little additional color's been added there at all, with a few little notes of red, but the majority of it is all black. And I think that is a working color that works best when you get a Predator that's majority green like this. Now, if this Predator was, say, green, which he obviously is, and he's that light, sickly yellow with a little bit of green added to it, which he obviously is, and then you took, say, the armor of, well, we'll go back again to Scout Predator, I don't think the two would work as well. The black does great to complement the coloring of the green and that very sickly looking yellow. Really, again, like the head sculpt here. It's also one of the two Predators. I believe Shaman also was unmasked. That's a Predator we'll be looking at in the next review. It's nice when you get to see a chance where Hiya Toys can showcase a Predator in a masked portrait, which we normally do see, and then you also get ones that are unmasked. It gives them really a good chance to shine and showcase some of the detail work. I mean, his pupils are a very bright orange, and despite that, you can still see his eyeballs, I should say, his irises are orange, and his pupils are very black. You almost don't even see them from a distance. When you look at them really closely, do you still see there's a pupil embedded inside the middle of that iris. Love the speckling of black that they added to the side of the face. That's actually on both cases, both sides. Seems a little bit more generous on this side than it is on this side here. The dreads on the back, again, are jet black in color, and it works very, very well. Just get the camera to focus. There we go. Despite the fact it's sharing a very similar black, because the dreadlocks are done in a shinier black, and the backdrop, against the backdrop of his armor, which is a more matte black, it still stands out. And I like the way that they used two different styles of paint when they applied it to this Predator. Again, like his gauntlets are really relatively small and streamlined. I mean, it still looks like there's a computer console on the side, maybe still a self-destruct. The other side, he doesn't have a blade or anything like that, nor it doesn't look like he has the means to retract out a blade. Then, of course, you got his skirting on the front, the coloring of the green and the yellow. which I didn't really, again, think I would have liked. I end up liking quite a bit, actually, in this particular Predator. You got the shin guard armor pieces, and then, of course, you've got his feet, which, again, carry that continued over swamp green color. That is the majority color that makes up the whole body of the Predator, with nice sprinklings of yellow and that lighter white. So again, really, all those colors coming together work out to be a really interesting looking Predator that I really do enjoy the design for. Looking at this guy's poseability, his head rotates back and forth, up and down. I mean, you get still quite a bit of range of motion from this guy. Back and forth also, you can rotate the head or hinge the head. The arms hinge outward. I feel like this one is a little bit more limited for obvious reasons, that he's got the big shoulder pad plates on the top that really does limit what you can do with the shoulders. Whereas this one, you get about a 45. This one you get, well, I mean, that would be about a 30-degree angle if so. Maybe a 15-degree angle. The arms rotate at least all the way around. And whatever arm you decide to go with, say we choose this arm, you can swivel back and forth on the bicep. And I like that they attached the shoulder piece to the top of his shoulder and didn't limit what you could do with the bicep. You can still quite freely move that back and forth. He does have the bend in the elbow. You can't rotate the forearm necessarily, but you can certainly rotate the hands back and forth. He has an upper torso ball joint, no lower waist articulation. It also seems like his torso seems larger. And again, when I put it next to this one, it does seem like it's a little bit bigger, doesn't it? I think it's because he does have this piece come further down on his torso. That automatically makes him a broader piece, because it does feel like his torso moves a little bit more freer, like the cavity itself is a little bit more open versus the other one that we had to look at. Legs split out, quite the generous splits as well. The legs go forward, the legs go back. I did actually just pop that off. Just pop that back into place. There we go. The knee does bend, double hinge on the bend, and you also saw too when the knee popped off, I just plugged it back in place. It actually works just on a peg system. I mean, really, one thing, at least for these pieces, wherever things that fall off on these Hiya Predators usually are simple just to fix that. I just pop it back in place. Usually it's a peg, or it's a ball joint, or in this case it's a peg down here. Nothing really ever gets broken necessarily on these unless you're really reckless and careless with them. Then finally, for the foot articulation, the feet move up and down, and you can rotate them back and forth. The hardest thing would be to pinpoint what exactly I would display this figure with. I kind of, again, like the idea of making them unique to one another. So in the case of Lost Predator, I probably will find myself displaying him with the bladed knife. The other Predators, again, being that they're generally more prone to spears and smart discs, I'll probably keep them in that territory. Because Predator here, the Lost Predator, is so unique in his design, his colors, and his armor. I certainly would want to also put him with a rather unique-looking accessory that we haven't seen very many times in the past with other Hiya Predator releases. Final looks for the Lost Predator from Hiya Toys, I decided to take a page from the Scout Predator's playbook and use one extra display stand, so I'm using two instead of one. This allows for a wider stance, a much more cooler looking display when it comes to the Lost Predator. I want him with the wider stance, especially if he's holding and wielding that blade in his hand. Unfortunately, though, that means you need to pick up one extra Predator, and that also means, unfortunately, that one extra Predator is going to have to sit out in order to pull off this look. I've also switched and alternated where the pegs are located. So on one stand, of course, the peg is at the back. The stand connected to that, the peg is at the front. That way I can firmly plant both feet in place so he doesn't have that wandering, lingering leg like the Scout Predator had in the last final looks. One thing I forgot to actually mention in this review, and I can certainly mention it here in final looks, is that on the side of his loincloth, you can probably see it right there on the right side of the screen, he actually has a loop where you can house that bladed weapon if you don't want to put it in his hand. Now, I probably will never put that actually in the loop, simply because with all the other Predators wielding smart discs and spears, I really want the Lost Predator to look unique. As if he isn't unique enough, I'm going to have the bladed weapon in his hand. But I just want to let you know, there's that loop located on the side of his loincloth that you could put the blade there if you wanted to. This Predator is very much a unique, different Predator than some of the ones we had gotten before. Though each Predator, to be fair, like a deadly snowflake, is different from the last. The coloring is different, the armor is different, and they mix and match different pieces so that you never are quite looking at the same carbon copy predator that you already have in your collection. Lost Predator takes that to the next level, incorporating some really dark, kind of swamp-like greens with yellows, and then he's got a more futuristic looking armor. This one certainly stands out versus some of the other Predators that we've already had a look at, and it may be a personal favorite of mine. Did you manage to pick up this one for yourself, or certainly based on this review and this review alone, what do you guys think of the Hiya Toys Predator 2 Lost Predator? Very different design Predator, and I'm liking it quite a bit. Also, I'd like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at Hiya Toys who were nice enough to send a bunch of these Predators my way. We have been, of course, looking at a bunch of Predators so far, and I believe there is one more that we're going to be addressing in the immediate future, and that is the Shaman Predator. So stay tuned certainly for that. If you are new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you turn the bell notification on, and most definitely make sure you stay tuned, because there's going to be a whole lot of videos coming your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.